Hello and welcome. You're watching me, Sanket Upadhyay, on the Federal. The show is called AI with Sanket. This is the AI of news because news in India today requires not artificial but analytical intelligence. There is a sugar shortage in this country. Now, why has that happened? The government has listed out very many reasons. They say that there was lower production. This is a festive season, so there is high demand. They also say that climate and the changes in the weather were perhaps responsible and certain efforts are being taken. The one big effort that they claim is to import sugar from outside to meet the rush. Now, here is the thing. Does the government not know when a crisis is about to hit? Did they not know that the festive season is around the corner? Did they not know that the production for the last year also had seen a decline? And the big issue which needs to be addressed, is this a result of the government pushing its ethanol policy? The government says that this present crisis of sugar has nothing to do with ethanol. This is basically weather related and demand and supply related. However, government's own admission is that 9% of ethanol is still being produced using sugarcane, and there are some other estimates that suggest that this very year the share from sugarcane and its products in making ethanol is as high as 32%. So is ethanol responsible for India's sugar mess? Is ethanol responsible for making sugar such a bitter pill for the government? Let's put this to a discussion. I have with me Professor Santosh Mehrotra, Visiting Professor, Center for Development, University of Bath, United Kingdom, and a Research Fellow at IZA Institute, Lab Economy at Bonn, ex-Professor of Economy, Chair, Center for Labour in JNU. Thank you very much, Professor Mehrotra, for joining us. We also have Mr. Chengal Reddy, Chief Advisor, Consortium of Indian Farmers Associations based in Hyderabad. You two are the best to be able to explain what is happening. Professor Mehrotra, I want to begin by asking you, how do you look at this for the government to say that, you see, there is no crisis, we have tackled this crisis and everything is fine, no issues, and ethanol is not responsible. This is the official response of the government. Your opening comments.
So let me try to put the best face on behalf of the government in regard to their argument, and then I will, try and pull apart that argument. In the best face that government can put on this is, sugar cane is not the only source of ethanol. We also use maize. Okay, fair enough. But the point is, you are continuing to use sugar cane. We know that, and you mentioned the numbers. At a minimum, it's 9%, as the government admits, and at a maximum, it is about 30 or 32%. So we have to keep that in mind. The second thing that we have to keep in mind is the following, that we know that sugarcane is a very water-absorbing crop, and it is being used to produce ethanol up to a level which is hurting the older vehicles, which are not do not have the technical ability to cope with lower high E20 share of ethanol of 20%. Now, given this, it's obvious that all other things remaining equal, if you are diverting a significant share of your sugarcane towards producing ethanol, it is obvious, it should be obvious to everyone, despite all the protestations by the government, that in fact sugarcane production is being diverted, and that's one of the foundational cause for a rise in sugar prices, especially if climate change is causing rainfall variation. Now, rainfall variation is certainly going to happen every year. The government ought to know that. You are rightly pointed out that the festival season comes around now. Janmashtami is around the corner, Rakhi is around the corner, then will come Dashera, then will come Diwali. The Hindu calendar points all this out well in advance. So it cannot be anyone's case that this increase in demand could not have been anticipated. Of course, it could have been anticipated. So the bottom line is that the government has decided, is being pig-headed or extremely stubborn in continuing with its E20 policy, and there is no reason for it to have continued like this, and that's the reason why sugarcane production has been has been diverted, and that's part of the reason. It may not be the only reason, but it's certainly part of the reason why sugar prices are higher.
Yeah, Mr. Chengal Reddy, if you can hear me, my question to you is, how do you respond to this crisis? Did farmers not know, associations not know? I believe that the sugar industry is extremely heavily regularized by the government. So at each step of the way, government decides every aspect related to sugar, sugarcane, its pricing, its distribution control, everything. So to say that there is a crisis now, will you call it a failure on the government's part?
Yes. In fact, for the past 10 years, central government, NDA government is totally failed. Of course, sugar sector is not only sugar sector, but if you look at cotton and other crops also, there is very serious problem. Sugar sector per se, if you see, about 200 and odd factories are closed in the last 10 years. And the government of India has not made any efforts towards a revival. Because sugar, there are two things. One, sugar cane is a multi-useful commodity, but then government never made any efforts. It's also a profitable activity for farmers. But somehow, for various reasons, government has failed to revive the sugar factories. This is number one. In regard to ethanol, yes, ethanol could be used for other purpose, but ethanol being used for automobile industry, in our view, is a wrong thing, because it is a failure of government. Because when electricity availability production is available across the country, and electricity vehicles are being produced in all segments, I don't understand why government is focusing on ethanol and go on saying, comparing with Brazil. I don't think government of India should understand. We can't compare with Brazil. Brazil is total different economy. So let's not get into that. The point here is, as you rightly said, sugar is very much controlled. Sugar could have been one of the best industries, because from the byproducts of sugar, including molasses and other things, you can make a lot of things, and sugar per itself is you can produce plastics and other things. And I would say this very, instead of going into elaborate details, Mr. Modi's government has let down the farmers, and the agriculture sector is in a big mess. And I don't want to tell you. See, once around 10 years back, we were exporting millions of tons of bales. And today, where are we? We are nowhere. I have made recently a comparison between China and India. Our cotton productivity since 2006 and 7 has remained around 500 kilos per acre. And whereas Chinese have gone up, increased to 1900 kilos. And likewise, maize, if you see, Americans are producing 10 to 12 tons, and we are stopped at around 3 to 4 tons. Somehow, yes, I must say that there is and also let me also tell you, there is no coordination in Union Ministry between agriculture, commerce, science and technology, and this this ethanol productivity and all this. It is totally, it is not focused. I don't want to pass serious comments, but I must say NDA government in regard to agriculture and farmers is a very disappointing, extremely disappointing. We farmers are very unhappy with what Mr. Modi is inability to agriculture and farmers issues.
I think, Mr. Reddy, I'm really concerned now when farmers associations have this sort of a view, then what chance do we have? Of course, this is the reality. This is not, the PR puffery that you see or the positioning that you see that the government tries to do. Professor Santosh Mehrotra, I would like to draw your attention now to some facts and figures. Would request the team to put out the Press Information Bureau graphics on the screen. The PIB graphics, which the PIB release. This is what a government release. They say that there is enough sugar, and then they say 343 lakh metric tons was the initial estimate, but the expected production is 306 lakh metric tons. So that is the reduction, which is why you see the increase in the price. Now, next slide, please. Because within the government, when it's trying to defend itself, it's actually exposing itself. Can we move to the next slide, please? Why have prices risen? Professor Mehrotra, look at the first reason. Production was lower than expected. Should the government have not known? Second, festive season demand is rising. Should the government not know this? Weather has damaged sugarcane crops, I can believe. Global sugar supplies, I can understand, outside your control. Speculation and hoarding have added pressure, again, something for which I will blame the government. You're supposed to control this. Let's take a look at the next slide. Because in each slide, there is a lot of room for, now they, by their own admission, they admit that the prices have risen. And then they say that the government has stepped in. Where have you stepped in? The price has risen. You yourself admit that the price is up per kg. And by the way, this is a conservative estimate. In Bihar, for instance, where a minister said, in any case, sugar is bad because it gives you diabetes. In that magnificent comment of that minister, in that state, the price is 65 kg. Imagine what ridiculous statement is being made by the minister. That because it causes diabetes, it is bad. Then don't breathe also because air is polluted. Terrible comment. Let's move on to the next slide, Professor Mehrotra, and then I'll ask my question. Yeah. What is the government doing? And then they give out details. And the next one, please. And that, because that is the most important. Can we shift to the next, please? The next slide, Professor Mehrotra says that in 22-23 financial year, 12% was sugarcane based ethanol production. And then in 25-26, it was only 9%. Now I want to ask you, you may be claiming that this has nothing to do with ethanol, but by your own admission, 9% of sugarcane is going into ethanol production.
Right.
Now, if this is diverted, it will offer some relief to sugar. It's a classic food versus fuel debate.
Absolutely. That's point one. I think the other point is that simply the share declining from 12 to 9% is not taking into account the following fact that the amount of ethanol being manufactured across the economy has gone up. So the absolute amount is rising even if the share being diverted of sugarcane towards ethanol is reduced. So what's the big deal? I mean, really the bottom line is the government is not coming clean. For months it has not come clean on its ethanol policy. And Chengal Reddy Saab is absolutely spot on in saying we cannot follow the Brazil model. We are Johnnies come lately who have begun to use sugarcane for production of ethanol in the last few years only. Brazil has been at this job and doing R&D for the last 20 years. And that's point one. Point two, that Brazil has vast amounts of land. India has much less land per thousand population, because it has much less land, and water is a very scarce commodity. Obviously, relative to our population, we are a water scarce country, and sugarcane is an extremely water intensive crop. Therefore, we have to be extremely careful about how we use water to produce paddy. Point one, it's a paddy like sugarcane is extremely water intensive, and so is sugarcane. So instead of giving silly excuses and Brazil's example and all that, we have to the government really honestly needs to come clean. So I've already made the point. So what if it's 12 to 9? The bottom line is the fact of the matter is the amount of sugar being diverted towards ethanol is still extremely high. And therefore, honestly, if we are not able to produce E10 ethanol, then we should be stopping E20 production. And ultimately, I think we have to reiterate the following point, that look, we are producing, the government makes a big deal about becoming a major producer of solar power. If you are, and it's absolutely correct that one third of generated electricity in our country is coming from solar. So even though installed capacity of renewables accounts for actually 51% of total installed capacity for electricity production in our country. So bottom line is, as we scale up on storage capacity for solar power, the share of solar is going to go on increase. So if we want to honestly reduce the import of oil, which is what is the reasoning given for use of ethanol, then the way forward is manufacture more e-vehicles, electric vehicles. If you move towards electric vehicles, you subsidize that, you would actually ensure an energy transition. You would begin to use the electricity which is being generated by solar means, and at the same time you will stop muddying the waters in respect of ethanol by trying to use E20. The government honestly really has to get its act together and stop deluding the population of India.
Okay, Mr. Chengal Reddy, just coming back to you, you see, minus this whole thing about sugar causes diabetes, and first of all, sugar is required. Okay, even in among diabetes patients, my mother was a diabetic, so I know when your sugar levels go down, then you need some sugar. So even that argument is ridiculous. Having said that, Mr. Chengal Reddy, all of what the government has done on ethanol, all of what the government has done about any diversion of food to fuel, whether maize, broken rice, or even sugarcane, the government has said that we are doing it for the benefit of the farmer. It's actually helping the farmer. Farmer is getting more money. So you are anti-farmer if you are questioning the E20 policy. As a representative of the Farmer Association, I want to ask you, how much have farmers benefited with this ethanol policy?
No, it is actually a governmental failure. You see, the government of India, has messed up. Let's take, for example, rice. See, rice productivity has hugely increased because of so-called MSP. And then they keep rice stocks for more than required 2-3 years excess rice stock. So they say and then it gets rotten, and then they sell it to the ethanol. And then you take maize, which is basically a poultry and cattle feed and other utility issue. That also, you see, you can't divert maize for ethanol because it is required by poultry and this cattle feed and fishery sector. And then you see, look at the, I mean, I don't want to, because it's not for trying to find fault with anybody. See, the confusion or a lack of clarity in government of India. What are our priorities today? It is pulses, it is edible oils, and then other things where we have excellent export potential in terms of spices and other things. There is a total confusion and lack of clarity in government of India. Actually, the so-called ethanol policy is not benefiting farmers, not at all. Yes, except in UP, what is happening? Some sugar factories are making ethanol instead of sugar, and then they may be paying a little bit higher price. But the fact remains that, as you said, today the problem in India is malnutrition. You have 40-50% poor people, children, women, malnutrition. Instead of giving them protein food, I mean, how to arrange protein food and all that, here is a golden opportunity in sugar sector. Because sugar cane per se is not a bad thing. Sugar cane per se has a lot of advantages. But this mixing it with ethanol and trying to make tall claims, it is wrong. As a professor said, See, we have plenty of solar energy and we are also going for green energy producing across the country. It is going to be made available and locally we can do. So the point is, see, look, we know there is today what you call the problems for farmers is, today the real farmers are lacking. Most of the farmers leaders are what you call a political farmers. See, our problem, I am an activist for 35, 40 years. I find this problem. Look at even this ethanol issue. The BJP farmers will support whatever Mr. Modi says. And the Congress and communist farmers will oppose whatever Mr. Modi says. See, here comes the real problem for farmers. What is the reality? The reality is, as regards the ethanol, first of all, it is wrong. It is not a correct policy. Let me not say wrong policy. It's not a correct policy. Ethanol may have other uses, but using it for automobile is a very wrong step. And secondly, sugar sector per se, government should have concentrated in reviving sugar industry and then making other products are there. Plenty of other things are there. And then this telling of that sugar is not necessary. I mean, they don't understand. You see, I'll tell you, look at the poor people in India. There are about 60, 70%. How many of them take a sweet? I am from a upper middle class family. My granddaughter, my grandchildren, me, we take sweets. We take 2-3 times coffee, sugar, sweets, every festival, every Sunday. Now, let us see how many Adimvasis, fishermen, tribals, SCs, BCs, the so-called poor people, underprivileged people, women and children, they need sugar. Every day, I think every human being must have sugar. And then this BJP leaders and ministers, maybe their ignorance and lack of knowledge and other things. But the real problem, as you rightly said, ethanol policies is messed up by government of India. And I don't know what will be the consequence means. The consequence will be definitely sugar prices will increase and other the growth of so-called actually this solar and battery sector that would have been given push by, government says they are giving, but you should have given preference to that and then use this agriculture produce for the purpose for which it is meant. As I told you, there is absolutely lack of clarity in government of India. I'm sorry to say that Mr. Modi, we expected everything from him, but then in agriculture sector and farmers, people across the country are terribly disappointed. And that's all we can say. We are unhappy. All that I can say is that this policy is not a correct policy and it will have serious problems if government continues. Because look at another sector which is very relevant. Poultry, milk, dairy, poultry and aqua sector, which are critical for nutrition. And today, poultry sector and dairy sectors requires much more. See, there is a milk shortage, but then we are not able to improve the breeds and the productivity is not increasing the dairy sector. Poultry sector, no doubt, is maintaining some balance. Aqua sector, yes, it is able to export. See, this government of India, even though, in constitution and everybody is under impression agriculture is a state subject, the reality is since liberalization for the last 30 years, whether it is Congress, BJP or anybody, all these chaps have exploited and let down the farmers. It's not that I am trying to find fault with everybody. The reality is the entire life of farmers is controlled. I would ask Mr. Modi's government one simple question. You control sugar price, sharing, everything, export, import and all. Now I would ask you, the government of India, why are you not controlling the prices of pesticides, diesel, tractor price and drip price? Why is that government of India is not controlling and make it available to farmers? They announced so-called minimum support price for 23-24 product. How much are they procuring except rice, wheat and small thing? See, the government policies require agriculture sector requires, all of them requires overhauling. I wish now that Mr. Modi has another 2.5 years time, if he is politically wise for BJP and whoever they are, if you people can bring about total radicalized agriculture, it is time that for next 2.5 years, this government, NDA government, should prioritize agriculture. You have to focus as agriculture-centric economy. Please don't worry about other things. Nobody needs your government. You take IT, you take pharma, they are all on their own. It is a farmers. And what government of India always says, we want to give you free. We don't want free. We are not beggars, man. We want to live with dignity. Look at productivity. China has in cotton, China produces 1900 kg and we are stopped at 500 kg. Americans and Brazilians produce almost 3 times, about 10 to 12 tons of maize. We produce just 4-5 tons of maize. And soya also, Brazil, Argentina. Everywhere, agriculture economy is a total collapsing. Not that we are going to starve, but Modi must answer the people of this country, especially farmers. Tell me, sir, in 12 years' time, you have visited so many countries. Have you brought from any country one agriculture technology? One agriculture technology, Modi? Mr. Modi, as a Prime Minister, sir, we are asking you, farmers, please tell me, have you made one agreement? Yes, you have made agreements for exports. Americans are forcing you for all these things. Now, this is high time that Mr. Modi, BJP government, all those behind, you should realize that Indian agriculture, farmers, rural areas are extremely in distress. I think it is time that you people focus. I only wish and pray God that He will give you wisdom to have some sense to focus on agriculture in the coming 2 years.
All right. I think that's a very, very open and honest suggestion being given to the government of India. Thank you very much, Mr. Chengal Reddy, as well as Professor Mehrotra, for joining us on this discussion. Thank you so much.